is one of the most researched and studied relics in church history, and profoundly impacts many who encounter its mystery.
As a person of faith, looking at it through the eyes of faith, I don't think it can help but touch your heart.
Something that we can look on not only to bolster our faith in those moments of weakness, but also to deepen our faith and our appreciation, our intimacy with Christ.
Join Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry as they examine the science of the shroud through the lens of faith.
Really interesting scientific information that we didn't know about, like the pollen from all the different regions of the world. As the shroud traveled around, it picked that up. Some of the mites, things like that was really interesting to me. I mean, this made you really want to believe it a lot more.
It's impressive. Like, humanly, I don't think that is another level of love. It's not I'm gonna see people like, oh, I love you, I'll give you a chocolate. No. I'm giving you more than my life. I'm giving you my suffering.
Asking both experts and disciples, who do you say I am?
As far as who the man of the shroud is, as a person of faith and kind of reviewing the evidence there, it seems that a convincing argument can be made that it's Jesus of Nazareth.
Visit patchworkheart.org/shroud to learn more and get exclusive behind-the-scenes updates for your support.
Today, many students go to college with numerous questions about their faith, yearning to know if the seed planted in them as a child is both true and practical. Using the miracle on the road to Emmaus as a model, young adult ministers conversed weekly for 3 months with college students about the most pressing questions they had about the Catholic faith. As they journeyed together virtually, something amazing happened. Doubts disappeared, fears faded, and Jesus revealed that He is still alive. Hearts Burning Within Us, the latest book from Patchwork Heart Ministry, is a result of that grace-infused conversation. It is the perfect back-to-school gift for recent high school graduates and current college students. Get your copy for them today at patchworkheart.org or by calling 424-704-3278. That's 424-704-3278. Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Sowing Hope. I am Bill Snyder. It's great to be with you. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us on this episode. And Ann and I are finishing up a series on parenting. So we're going to be talking about our Catholic parenting, and this is the 10th of 10 episodes. So if you haven't listened and tuned in yet, folks, make sure that you go back in our podcast feed and take a listen to the other 9 episodes because they kind of build on one another, even though they're independent topics. So, we reference things. So check it out. And welcome, Ann, as always. She is my trusty co-host. How are you?
Doing great, Bill. I mean, it's a little sad feeling because it's the last of the series, but I'm also happy because I know that Sowing Hope is continuing, right?
Oh, yeah.
The Sowing Hope podcast is continuing, but this is the last in the 10-part parenting series. But I think it's really important that we did this series because we're taping it here in the spring of 2022. But this is literally something that can be listened to next year, the year after that. I mean, it's parenting advice, Catholic parenting advice, and related to faith, right? Not just parenting advice, but advice to help to raise your kids in the faith. And
Absolutely.
so that's why I think it's a real treasure. And thank you, Bill, for all you do and for the wise advice and knowledge that you have with raising a little one, and also all the knowledge that you share with being that youth minister that you did for such a long time. And you have so much knowledge there as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, this is beautiful, and it's been a great series. So, I know we're gonna finish off with ages 22 and plus. So it's kind of those, uh, graduation, college graduation, and moving off into the real world, which is scary for a lot of young adults.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree. And this is an area that I can say I can speak on
Yeah.
because my 2 daughters are now 25 and 23. So they're both out of college and both working. And, people sometimes ask me, like, well, how did you, meaning it's all on me, but it wasn't, right? How did you raise your kids in the faith? And of course, it was the work of God. But my husband and I, we had to be open, right? We had to be open to wanting to do that, wanting to raise them in the faith. And Bill, I know you saw a lot of that as a youth minister, the parents that were able to help to foster that with their kids. And then you also saw ones probably once in a while that had a harder time with it, right? And you learn from that. You learn from the mistakes of not only ourselves, but what we observe in other families. And I the only thing I'll say, Bill, to all of our listeners, and I repeated this advice almost every episode, but the best advice that I can give in terms of any kind of parenting and keeping your kids in the Catholic faith, step number one is for you to love your faith, right? I don't care what age you are either. I don't care if you have a little one. I don't care if they're grade school, high school, or even college or beyond. When your kids observe and see that you love your faith. Now, I don't mean fanatical, right? There's some people who we can love our faith, but we also have to live and be human beings and enjoy life and enjoy things and enjoy people, places, and things and enjoy what God has given us. But I mean is that you integrate that faith, right, Bill? I mean, I think what we have to do is integrate our faith so our kids see that we're normal people, right? We're normal human beings that love God and love our faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best advice, as you said, for any stage along this. But I think even for adults, to see that and to know that, and there's a beauty, like again, we don't need to be fanatical, but integrated into your life. Like, I mean, I just a recent example from my family. Like, we had the opportunity to travel down to see my parents for Easter, right? Like, we drove a few hours to Kentucky, and we visited my folks. And over the Easter break, or over that Easter little vacation that we had, we of course integrated our faith life. Like, it was over Good Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The Triduum, and we have a little guy, so we weren't really able to go to all of the long masses. I couldn't go to the Holy Thursday or Good Friday services because they're just plain old too long, or even the Holy Saturday. Like, you just can't do it with a 11-month-old baby all doing is crawling around the whole time. And so we weren't able to do that, but we were able to integrate our fasting, and we were able to talk about that, and we talked about faith around the dinner table quite a bit. And then in addition to that, like on Sunday morning, we made sure we all went to church. and we all went to church together. It was beautiful, you know, and you know, my son cooperated. You know, he had to eat a few Cheerios, but other than that, it was beautiful and it was great to all be together, praying together, and thanking God together for His, you know, amazing mercy and gift of His resurrection on Easter Sunday. And so, you know, if you just integrate it, as you know, and it's an expectation, right? Like this is an expectation of my parents, that we go to mass together, you know, and so that's a beautiful thing. Like it's part of our adult relationship that I have with my parents, and you know, as you raise adult children, you know, continue to keep it in your life, you know, whether it's giving the you know, books, being there for your grandchildren's baptisms. I mean, that's a huge thing. Like my parents made sure we both made sure our parents were available. My wife's parents and my parents were available for my son's baptism. You know, go to those things, go to the first communions of your grandchildren, and show that your faith is important not only to your kids but to their kids. And I think, you know, as you become a parent and a grandparent, that's so important to just live it and talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk about your faith.
Yeah, that's an important thing, I think, with your kids, because I think that a long, long time ago, and I remember when my parents were growing up, that evangelization in the Catholic Church was more to just live it out and not really discuss it that much, right, outside of the house. I do think things have changed, though, since that time. And I do think that people are becoming a little more Catholics that love their faith are becoming a little bit more open to sharing that. And what a better place to do that than inside the walls of your own home and with your kids. Now, just to kind of bring the conversation to that age group, the one thing that I think I've learned that isn't when they graduate from college, you know, those the super duper closeness that you have with your kids when they're below the age of high school can continue. It can continue when they're adults. But there is something called independence. And I think that as parents, we have to respect that with our kids. We have to really let them go on their way to find out who they are and what they like to do. And another thing I think we should discuss is vocations, right? Because when they reach that age of 22 and after college, this is the time that they're discerning that, right? Now, when we think of vocations, a lot of us immediately think about becoming a priest or sister or, you know, religious, but not always, right? I mean, it could be whether they're being called to, you know, the married life, or, you know, sometimes people are called, you know, or to be single. But most of all, that the marriage is mainly what they're being called to, right, into a vocation.
Yeah.
And so whether it's going to happen in the 20s or the 30s, you know, sometimes it even happens, you know, in a later in life. But this is the time that they start thinking about this. Bill, I didn't know if you had anything to add on that.
Yeah, I think that that's really important to look at and to just model, right? Like just model for your kids. Obviously, you are married, if you know, or you are in a situation where you were once married or whatever, and or I shouldn't even say that, but you know, as a parent, you have the opportunity to witness, even if your situation was irregular. You know, you have an opportunity to witness your vocation to your kids, and so if you are married and you're still married, witness that vocation. You know, witness that vocation to them. I mean, I'm blessed to have my parents married. I think it's going to be for 40 years next year. I think it's 39 this year and 40 next year. Yeah, 2023 will be 40 years, which is beautiful.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, and yeah, but you know, and they're a wonderful witness. But again, if you're not, if you're not in a marriage, or you're single, or you're divorced, or whatever that looks like, do your best to witness the ideal. Witness the ideal to your kids, Because I think we all know within our human hearts what that ideal is, and we all fall short of that ideal every day. So I don't want to I don't want to bash anybody, like, like
Yeah.
my marriage isn't perfect, and I'm sure yours isn't either.
No.
Um, but do your best to witness to that ideal.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and it'll make them want to remain in their marriages. It'll make them want to stay faithful to their spouse, to their kids, to raising them in the faith, and that can be stuff that's really practical and simple. It doesn't have to be like again, like all going to church together. It can be um, the focusing on the importance of family, focusing on the importance of having everybody together, once a year or twice a year for different events. My mom and dad always talk to us about, we want everybody in our family to be together at least twice a year. I don't care when that time is. They're like, I don't care whether it's, Christmas and Easter or whatever it is. I just want everybody to be together. And, when we're all together, yeah, there's disagreements and arguments and, crazy stuff happens. But, but the beautiful thing about that is that this is the ideal, is to come together as a extended family, to go to the beach, to relax, whatever, and enjoy our lives, right? To enjoy
Mm,
our life, as you mentioned earlier. God wants us to live in that abundance. Right? Didn't he say that in the Gospels? I came as you might have life to the full. Y-
that's right.
And
That's right.
so,
He wants you to enjoy your life. Now, when I say enjoy, some people think of things that maybe they think of things that are not exactly godly, right? But God wants us to enjoy the fruits of our labor in a healthy and godly way.
yes,
Godly way. Okay, so that's what we mean by that. Not to just forget about your faith and go have fun. It's not what we're saying, right?
right,
You can have fun and have your faith too. Both. They can go together.
right,
And
exactly.
that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. But what you said about marriage, I think, is also important because, we witness to our kids for vocations uh, with our own marriages, right? And Bill, you made a good point. And even if, no marriage is perfect, you know what? But love is perfect. Love is perfect, but no marriage is perfect because we all fall short, right? But the love that we have and that commitment that you have in your marriage in the sacrament of matrimony, that's the bond that keeps you going even when you do have hard times, adversities,
Mhm.
arguments, whatever, disagreements, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that God will get you through and you can love that person unconditionally, right? The way that God loves them, not the way, not an idol, like an idolizing someone,
Yeah.
right? Because Angelo, my husband, knows that I'm not perfect. He's probably listening to this and laughing right now. I'm not perfect. I know that he's not, but I know that he's got a lot of beautiful, wonderful attributes that I love him for those, and I love him for who God made him to be.
Mm.
But it doesn't mean that he's perfect because he's not, and neither am I. And that's what you were trying to express, Bill, right? That it's not perfect, but that witnesses to our kids when they see mom and dad made up after they talked about this topic, right? They were able to make amends on whatever that disagreement was.
Right.
And that's where they see that marriage is great. It's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when you again witness the ideal, and if you're not in a marital relationship, you can still witness to the ideals for your kids. You can still point to others, along their road and along their journey. I mean, anything can happen, right? Like, your spouse can pass away. I mean, there's a bunch of different things that happen. Nobody has an ideal perfect model. The only perfect model that we can point to is a Trinity, right? Like that's how we
That's
can
right.
point to it. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and we can understand that on some level. But the reality is that as you said, in the brokenness, that witness to model the unconditional love of the Trinity allows us to point out the really good things to our kids. And I mean, you can do it at any age. I think it's important though at this age, as you mentioned, they're discerning, they're thinking about these things. And the other thing is, if they're discerning religious life, get them in front of good religious orders or good
Amen.
dioceses. Because guess what? You can't witness that lifestyle to them. You're
No.
you know you're not a priest, you're not a religious sister, so you've got to get them in front of people. I remember when I was discerning for priesthood, I kind of went out on my own and looked around at different orders and stuff, but my parents were right there during that process. They were coming to the place I was living at the shrine, and they were coming to the tenebrae services, and they were having lunch with the friars, and being incredibly supportive of that. And so you can do those things for your young adults in your life. Just be supportive. Show up for the certain events at the seminary, or the different milestones that your kid is going through. I think showing up is half the battle, but also
Oh, yeah.
encouraging them along that journey, because it is foreign to you. I mean, it is foreign to you unless you've gone through it to a certain degree. So there are many men and many women who have discerned religious life and then say, I'm going to discern out. And so you can work with your children through that process. But the vast majority maybe don't have that experience. So just get them in front of good priests, good bishops, and do the research. Have good friends that are religious brothers and sisters and priests and deacons. I remember when I was discerning priesthood, when I was in high school, my mom and dad knew the vocation director in Philadelphia at the time, and he called him up and he said, they called him up and said, "Hey, Billy's discerning. Can we?" He was a priest, and he was a good parish priest, and for many years at our parish, and so they just knew him personally. And they said, "Hey, you discerning? Can you come over and talk to him?" And yeah, it was no problem. So I think just being supportive is so important if your child's thinking about that.
I'm glad that we're discussing this, because I think that there's a natural inclination for us on this podcast, because it's for the ages 22 and over. You and I are both in the vocation of marriage. So, of course, we're going to focus on that. But, this is the time for those doors to open also for the vocations to the priesthood or religious life, or being a sister or nun. So I think it's very important. Now, there's an organization I wanted to mention. I believe that the website is vocationministry.com. It's not .com, it's .org. So forgive me, I don't have it off the top of my head here. But there's a woman that founded that organization named Rhonda, and she does beautiful work all throughout the United States, educating people on how to foster vocations in churches. And so I got a little bit of a training from them, from the Serra missionaries. I'm a member of that group. It's Saint Junipero Serra, who was a saint from many years ago, I think about 500 years ago or so. But the whole idea was he's the patron saint of vocations. And so, the learning about that is simply sometimes when you say to someone in a simple way, somebody that a young person, or maybe someone in their 20s, "Hey, have you ever thought about becoming a priest? I think you make a good one." Or, "Have you ever thought about religious life?" That single sentence can make the biggest difference. If you see someone at church or somebody in your family or whatever, mention it, because you never know where that can go. Many times when people decide that they will try and enter religious life or in the seminary, some of the reasons that they give is because someone at church or someone they knew said that. They actually said that to them. And so I think it makes a big difference. Now, I have to mention, of course, because we had the commercial, or sometimes we have commercials on the podcast for the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation once in a while, but I can't let this pass by without mentioning the religious order that I represent. And it is a beautiful religious order. And so if people are listening that know someone, a young man who would like to consider becoming a priest or a brother, because it's religious order, so they have both vocations. And they have sisters as well, but this order that I'm associated with, the Mercenarian Friars, is specifically for men, young men. Go to orderofmercy.org and learn about the order. And the fourth charism of their vow is the willingness to give their lives for those in danger of losing their faith. And that really made a big impact on me as a person when I met this order, and how they really transformed my own spirituality. And Bill, I know you understand that too, since you've talked to me about this, and you're a board member with a foundation, St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation.
Oh, it's
But anyway, I
No,
just think
no,
it's
it's a-
important for them to just check it out. Check out the Order of Mercy.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. I think, I think being open to the exploration is also super important, right? You got to let your kids kind of go explore their life, especially early on. I was talking with another young adult yesterday, much younger than me, not much younger, but a little younger than me. And I was talking about, he was just going through different things, and I was saying, it's okay to take calculated risks. You're a young person, you know. It's okay. Like, you're not 50, you're not 60. It's okay to take calculated risks for you and your family, and your future family, right? Like, and encourage your kids, not to be reckless. We don't want kids to be reckless, but and just do crazy stuff. But it's okay to start a business. It's okay to that fails and falls on its flat on its face. Because when you're 22 and you start, you attempt to do that, and it falls flat, and you end up trying something new at 25, like, it's okay. Encourage your kids to do those things. I think we have to break the cycle as people of faith that the world dictates your life to you, right? Like, there's so much of that goes on. You get on this hamster wheel. Like, you need to go to college, you need to do this, you need to do this, get a good job, get married. Like, all of these things, you don't know. You don't have to follow that narrative that the world puts in front of you, right? The world putting this narrative in front of you is not, how should I say? It's not necessary to follow that. Let them explore. Let them fail. Help them pick them up. But after they get out of college, let them, encourage them to start their own business. Encourage them to do something on the side. Help them through that process. Let them skin their knee. It's hard to do as a parent. You don't want them to, fall when they're 11 months old, but you got to let them skin their knee at some point, so that they can grow up and learn.
Yeah. And I think that's good advice, not just for little kids like little Elvin, that 11 months, almost 12 months old here in April of 2022. But it's good advice as you go through childhood, as you go through middle school, high school, college. There is a certain kind of testing out to see where you belong in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you're finding out that vocation, another way just to meet people, I think meeting people when you're a young adult is a very important thing. Just meeting new friends. And if you're a person of faith, and I believe that we should meet all kinds of people and be exposed to all kinds of cultures and religions. And it doesn't just have to be Catholic people. But as far as meeting people who you can share faith with, I think that is also very important. And so you can join something like Young Catholic Professionals. Look it up. Just Google that one, Young Catholic Professionals. I even enjoy going to their meetings because they have a mentor program for older people like me. And I've been able to mentor one woman and help her out with some career ideas and just discussions that we've had, and go to these meetings and just really enjoy meeting people, young people and people my age once in a while there too. So check that out. In most of the dioceses and archdioceses, they have something like a young adults group. So I definitely would recommend that. I mean, I'm in Archdiocese of Philadelphia. We have wonderful groups in the area for young adults. In fact, my oldest daughter goes to something called Metanoia in my area, Montgomery County, greater Philadelphia area. And that's a wonderful thing too. So I definitely think that's a way to connect with your faith, connect with other like minded people. And you never know, you might meet some, could be a future spouse. I'm just going to say it, right? I mean, you just never know who you'll meet, or maybe a great new group of friends or something. So,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but no, this has been such a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed talking about this because I think it's such a great topic, to talk about and to, maybe even revisit, for future podcasts, right?
absolutely. Yeah, that sounds good, Bill. So this was a great series. As Bill and I have said over and over again, we invite you to go on our playlist. If you go to Patchwork Heart Ministry on YouTube, or even on the patchworkheartradio.org, there is a playlist on the YouTube channel, I know for sure, that says the Sowing Hope Parenting Series. Well, I want to ask you all a favor. If you can share this with your diocese and archdiocese, this is a whole 10-part podcast series on every stage of growing in your faith. So please share it with others. Connect with us on social media. And you can always send us an email at sowinghope@patchworkheart.org to stay in touch. Bill, thanks so much.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you, Ann. This has been so much fun. Look forward to discussing our next series, and next topic, which we're going to be diving into, is the Synod on Synality. So we're super excited about that for our next week, or next series that we're going to be starting. So stay tuned for that, and we appreciate you all tuning in as always. But until next time, from all of us here at Patchwork Heart Ministry, I'm Bill Snyder. Keep beating to your Catholic hearts and sowing hope into broken hearts.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Andy Santis 2.
Today, many students go to college with numerous questions about their faith, yearning to know if the seed planted in them as a child is both true and practical. Using the miracle on the road to Emmaus as a model, young adult ministers conversed weekly for 3 months with college students about the most pressing questions they had about the Catholic faith. As they journeyed together virtually, something amazing happened. Doubts disappeared, fears faded, and Jesus revealed that He is still alive. Hearts Burning Within Us, the latest book from Patchwork Heart Ministry, is a result of that grace-infused conversation. It is the perfect back-to-school gift for recent high school graduates and current college students. Get your copy for them today at patchworkheart.org or by calling 424-704-3278. That's 424-704-3278.
The Shroud of Turin is one of the most researched and studied relics in church history, and profoundly impacts many who encounter its mystery.
As a person of faith, looking at it through the eyes of faith, I don't think it can help but touch your heart.
Something that we can look on not only to bolster our faith in those moments of weakness, but also to deepen our faith and our appreciation, our intimacy with Christ.
Join Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry as they examine the science of the shroud through the lens of faith.
Really interesting scientific information that we didn't know about, like the pollens from all the different regions of the world. As the shroud traveled around, it picked that up. Some of the mites, things like that was really interesting to me. I mean, this made you really want to believe it a lot more.
It's impressive. Like humanly, I don't think like that is another level of love. It's not I'm gonna see people like, oh, I love you, I'll give you a chocolate. No. I'm giving you more than my life. I'm giving you my suffering.
Asking both experts and disciples, who do you say I am?
As far as who the man of the shroud is, I, as a person of faith and kind of reviewing the evidence there, it seems that a convincing argument can be made that it's Jesus of Nazareth.
Visit patchworkheart.org/shroud to learn more and get exclusive behind-the-scenes updates for your support.